I made Christmas dinner for the woman who raised me, turkey, stuffing, pie, and halfway through her first bite, she looked up and said, "You need to get out." No warning, no fight, just a quiet eviction. On Christmas Day. What happened next shattered everything I thought I knew about family. They say Christmas is the season for miracles, but for me, it was the season my own mother decided to kick me out mid-bite of the turkey I spent all day making. I didn't lose my cool. I didn't even flinch. Between chews of dry stuffing, I calmly reminded her that I paid the rent, handled the bills, and stocked the fridge. Then, the very next morning, without a single goodbye, I packed my things and slipped out of the house like a ghost. Before I dive deeper, quick note. This is part of our brand new journey here, and we're pouring our hearts into sharing stories that hit you right in the gut. If you're vibing with this already, tap that subscribe button. You'll be helping us reach 1,000 subscribers and keeping these real moments alive. All right, back to Christmas. I had woken up early, determined to make the day perfect. I roasted a turkey until it was golden and steaming, hand-mixed stuffing from scratch, even baked an apple pie the way my mom used to love when I was a kid. The house smelled like every good memory we ever had. Warm, buttery, safe. And for the first time in forever, I let myself believe, maybe, just maybe, this Christmas would be different. I poured the wine, folded the napkins, lit the candles. When I finally sat down, it was with a cautious hope that maybe we could be a real family again, even if only for a night. But reality had other plans. Without even looking at me, my mom sliced into the turkey, chewed methodically, then glanced up with a flicker of recollection, like she just remembered she left the oven on. "You need to move out," she said, her voice flat like she was commenting on the weather. No buildup, no hint of emotion. Just a bomb dropped right in the middle of our Christmas table. I froze, fork halfway to my mouth. Maybe I misheard? Number. The way my sister's eyes widened and my cousin's chewing halted mid-bite told me everything I needed to know. I placed my fork down, took a breath, and said quietly, "Mom, I pay for everything here. The rent, the bills, groceries. You haven't worked in years." She just shrugged, swirled her wine, and mumbled something about needing her space back, as if I was some unwanted guest overstaying my welcome, not the reason she still had a roof over her head. Let me give you some quick background. I'm 26, working full-time in IT. A few years ago, when Mom lost her job and was about to lose the house, I moved back in to help her, not the other way around. I took on the rent, covered utilities, paid for the Wi-Fi, the groceries, her Netflix subscription. Never once asked for a dime. It was family. She raised me. I thought helping her was the least I could do. Somewhere along the way, though, something shifted. Suddenly, I was the problem. If dishes weren't done, my fault. Wi-Fi acting up? Must be me. God forbid I get a call during her nap time. I was being disrespectful. I told myself she was stressed, maybe even depressed. I stayed quiet through her cold shoulders and biting comments, swallowed every guilt trip about how lucky I was to live under her roof, even though, technically, she was living under mine. After her little Christmas Eve eviction notice, I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I simply stared at her, wondering how the woman I bent over backward to help could be so cold. Then I stood up, excused myself, and walked quietly to my room. I sat there for hours, trying to process what had just happened. No big argument, no massive blow-up, just, "Get out." Over and over, the words played on loop inside my head. I packed slowly, methodically, my hands moving like they belonged to someone else. I didn't even know where I'd go yet, but I knew I couldn't stay. She didn't come check on me, didn't ask what I was doing. It was like she genuinely didn't care. The next morning, while she was still sleeping off her wine, I grabbed my suitcase, my laptop, the few essentials that mattered, and walked out. No drama, no letter, no goodbye, just silence. At first, I half expected my phone to light up with a call or a message. Maybe she'd realize she'd made a mistake. Maybe she'd apologize. But the hours stretched into days. Nothing. Not even a, "Are you okay?" I ended up crashing on my friend Mason's couch. He didn't even hesitate when I asked. Honestly, his simple kindness hit harder than anything. Made me realize just how emotionally barren my home had become. Within a few days, I managed to find a tiny studio on the edge of town. It wasn't much, barely big enough for my bed and laptop. But it was mine. No passive-aggressive glances when I laughed too loud. No guilt-tripping about existing. Just peace. Just quiet. About a week after moving out, my younger sister texted me with a message that made my stomach twist into knots. "You won't believe what Mom is telling everyone." I called her immediately, and what she said felt like a punch to the gut. Turns out, Mom had spun an entirely different version of events for the family. She told them I abandoned her on Christmas. Claimed I screamed at her across the dinner table, packed up in a rage, and left her all alone, sobbing. She painted herself as the heartbroken mother left to fend for herself against her cruel, selfish son. And people believed her. Aunts I grew up loving were reaching out to comfort her. One even offered to deliver home-cooked meals to help her cope. Meanwhile, my uncle unfollowed me on Instagram. A cousin quietly kicked me out of the family group chat. All based on a lie. That's when something inside me snapped. I had swallowed my pride for years, endured the digs, the manipulations, the silent treatments, all without fighting back. But this? Watching her destroy my name just to protect her own image? I couldn't stay silent anymore. I thought about blasting the family group chat with the truth, but that felt messy, childish. Instead, I took a deep breath, sat down at my laptop, and wrote a post. Clear, respectful, honest. I didn't name-call or rant. I simply laid out the facts. How I paid every bill in that house. How I never asked her for a thing. How after spending hours cooking her a Christmas feast, she told me, without warning, to leave. I posted it and then, heart-pounding, logged off. What happened next? Well, let's just say, I wasn't even close to ready for the storm that followed. I tried to distract myself. Tried not to think about what people might be saying. But as night fell and the city lights flickered outside my tiny window, curiosity started gnawing at me. When I finally gave in and opened my phone, it was like a dam had burst. Notifications flooded my screen, missed calls, texts, DMs, more than I'd ever seen in my life. Right at the top was a message from Aunt Lisa. Of all people, she was the last one I expected to hear from. The one who usually stayed out of the drama. Her words made me stop and blink hard. She said she was sorry. Said my post had opened her eyes. That deep down, she always knew my mom had a habit of twisting stories when things didn't go her way, but no one ever dared call her out. Lisa told me she was ashamed for believing the worst about me, and that if I ever needed anything, her door was open. I didn't realize how badly I needed that kind of validation until it hit me square in the chest. One by one, the messages kept coming. Some relatives apologized outright. Others didn't say much, but their silence, their sudden change in tone, told me they'd seen the truth for themselves. My cousin Caleb sent me a message that caught me off guard. "You know, we always knew something was off about how your mom treated you." I sat there staring at his words, feeling this strange mixture of grief and relief. I had lived in that toxicity for so long, doubting my own perception, wondering if I was just too sensitive. But here was someone else saying, "No, you weren't crazy. It really was that bad." But the real explosion happened the next morning, when my mom saw the post. I hadn't tagged her, hadn't named her. But clearly, someone had passed it along, because I woke up to an avalanche of messages from her. At first, she went the guilt trip route. "I can't believe you would humiliate me like that." Then the anger. "You twisted everything. I never told you to leave. You chose to. You're just making yourself out to be the victim as always." And finally, the classic fallback card. After everything I've done for you. Reading that last part, I actually laughed. A cold, hollow kind of laugh. After everything I'd done for her, the irony was almost too rich. I didn't answer. I didn't feed into it. She had already shown me who she was, loud and clear. I wasn't about to drag myself back into the mud, trying to reason with someone who had no interest in being honest. The weeks that followed felt like coming up for air after being underwater for years. In my little studio apartment, I started building a life from scratch. I bought a battered second-hand couch, a tiny kitchen table, a cheap coffee maker. I cooked meals just for myself. I binged shows at full volume without anyone passive-aggressively sighing in the background. It was strange at first, the silence, the stillness. But slowly, it became beautiful. I hadn't realized how much invisible noise I'd been living with until it was gone. Then, out of nowhere, my younger sister texted me. She wanted to meet. We hadn't spoken much since I left, mostly because she was still living with Mom and didn't want to get caught in the crossfire. But when she walked into that little cafe downtown, she looked different. Worn down. Tired in a way I recognized too well. After some awkward small talk, she finally let it out. Things had gotten worse since I left. Way worse. Without me covering the bills, rent started slipping. The power got shut off for a whole day, before Mom scraped enough together to turn it back on. She had even tried begging our grandmother for money, and got turned down. My sister said Mom was spiraling, blaming everyone, spinning stories, making it all my fault. But then she said something that broke me a little. You did the right thing by leaving. Honestly, you should have done it a long time ago. Hearing that from someone who had lived through it too felt like the weight of a lifetime sliding off my shoulders. Someone else saw it. Someone else understood. She told me she was trying to figure out a way to leave too, once she could afford it. I promised her, when the time came, I'd be there for her. Not financially, I couldn't go back to bleeding myself dry, but emotionally. She wouldn't be alone, not like I had been. A few days later, there was a knock on my apartment door. It was Mom. She stood there awkwardly in the hallway, holding a store-bought pie like it was some kind of peace offering. Her smile was brittle, her eyes calculating. I didn't invite her in. I just stepped out into the hall and closed the door behind me, keeping a barrier between us. She launched into small talk. How she missed me, how the house felt empty without me, how maybe we could grab dinner and catch up. I let her speak. Then, calmly, I asked, "Are you here to apologize?" She hesitated, smirked a little, then said, "I don't think I need to. I think we both made mistakes." And just like that, I knew it was over. I shook my head, wished her well, and quietly closed the door. I didn't slam it. I didn't yell. I didn't even feel angry anymore. I just felt done. Because the truth was, I had spent years lighting myself on fire to keep her warm. I had sacrificed my money, my mental health, my peace, all trying to be the good son, the responsible one, the fixer. And for what? That chapter of my life was closed now. I left the post up. I never deleted it. It wasn't revenge, it was truth. I didn't care if she saw it as a betrayal. The real betrayal happened the night she chose herself over me without a second thought. It's been a few months since then. My apartment actually feels like a home now. Messy sometimes, but mine. I've filled it with tiny, joyful things. Second-hand books, a record player that skips a little, thrifted art on the walls. I see my sister sometimes. We grab coffee and talk about her plans for the future. She's strong, stronger than she even knows. And me? For the first time in my life, I'm living for myself. No guilt, no strings, just peace.